Say my name. I am awake. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
Welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Breaking Bad with Clifford and Caleb Humphrey. This episode is on Season 3, Episode 9, Kafkaesque. I gotta say, I had a lot of fun thinking about what they might mean by the title of this one. But before we get into that, Cabes, you want to do us the honors and refresh everyone's memory about what this episode was about?
Yeah, this one had a really fun introduction. It kind of showed the history of Los Pollos Hermanos, and in the middle of showing how delicious the chicken was and everything, it kind of switched over to distribute the meth while using Los Pollos Hermanos as a cover, all with a very nice musical background. It was pretty funny to watch. But this one showed Walt and Jesse pretty much hard at work making the meth. If you remember the agreement that they have, it's 3 months for $3 million divided by 2, so they each get $1.5 million. Jesse is shown in this episode to be upset with the amount of money that they're making based off of how much money Gus is making. I believe they did the math, and Gus was making around $96 million for 3 months compared to their $3 million. But, Gus poses the risks, so he wins the reward. But we also see Hank starting to recover from his wounds. But with that, the insurance and the cost of medical bills is a big play in this episode, and Marie has a hard time dealing with that. Also, we see Skylar coming up with a crazy story at the end of the episode on basically admitting that they have money to Marie to help pay for Hank's medical bills, with the whole cover of Walt is a gambling addict, and he found a way to figure it out and make all the money. And it was a perfect scenario for them to help, and it was all behind Walt's back, to say the least. But that was pretty interesting. And also the best part was Walt was able to figure out the whole story behind Gus's strategy with the whole dealing with the Salamanca brothers. And he basically figured it out step by step. And I think Gus kind of got a better respect for Walt after that conversation they had. But yeah, this is a pretty good one, and I'll just end with Jesse was not happy with the whole, I had said earlier, not happy with the money that they're making, and he kind of teams up with his old buddies and tries to come up with a new way to make money on the side by dealing the meth that they're cooking in the lab. So it should be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, thanks for the recap there. Yeah, this was a really interesting episode. I mean, all these episodes are good, but this one I thought was particularly interesting. There's just a lot going on. Okay, well let's try and tackle this title. So, Kafkaesque. Any initial thoughts?
Well, I'm staring at the definition right here, but before I Googled it, I had no idea.
Okay, well, I knew it had to do with Franz Kafka and his,
of course, I've read it.
Yeah, right. Well, I've read his. It's been a long time. Maybe I read his Metamorphosis, but it is one of the great books in the Western canon. And I know, what do I remember of it? It describes the transformation from a guy who turns into a bug of some kind. And so I've heard the term Kafkaesque, and I've never really sat to think what exactly does it mean. So I had a chance to sit down with a friend of mine who's quite literary and we discussed it a few days ago. And I think his definition is probably spot on. You can tell me if it matches whatever you're looking at. But he said it encompasses all of Kafka's works, which all have a very dark, sort of grotesque, dystopian feel to them. So when I think of Kafka, I think of the metamorphosis and sort of transformation, but I think it means something more of this like grotesque dystopia. So, okay, how do we? What on earth? Why do they name this episode after that? And why do they have Jesse bring it up? Boy, okay. I mean, obviously, there's some twisted stuff going on, right, in this whole show. This episode didn't seem to be particularly grotesque. I mean, I thought if anything was Kafkaesque, it was the first episode, whatever, when they dissolve the bodies in the bathtub and they like go through the acid in the floor, and just that's pretty freaking messed up. But there's nothing like that in this episode, really. However, there were two scenes in this episode that I thought did show transformations, in one in Jesse and one in Walt. So you tell me what you think of this, but the scene when Walt is driving away from his meeting with Gus and he's in the car and he just puts the pedal to the metal and he closes his eyes and goes into this weird trance state and nearly misses the 18-wheeler. And when he wakes up and sees the 18-wheeler, he kind of comes out of it. And like there's something that happened to him there, like a weird, almost like a demonic possession, like a twisting, metamorphosis of some kind happened to him there. And then secondly, Jesse, when I try and figure out why on earth is he not happy with his $1.5 million? And Walt brings it up like, look, like you're making $1.5 million. Like, why can't you just compare $1.5 million to what you were making instead of comparing your $1.5 million with Gus's, $9 million or whatever he's making, But whatever it is, there's something that takes over Jesse, a kind of greed mixed with this sort of like, I want to do something dangerous. And so he gets the gang together, Badger and Skinny Pete, and gets them psyched about the idea of slinging meth again. And so he's determined to steal it from Walt and Gus. And there's the scene when he finally, when they're measuring out the meth and Walt asks him how much does it weigh, and he gives him a number that's higher than the actual number he's looking at so that he can steal the difference. And the look in his eyes when he kind of puts it together, it's going to be this easy. I can just scrape the top off and steal like almost a pound of meth this way. That look in his eyes, it's almost like a demonic possession, like something happened to him, like this craze that was eerily similar to what happened to Walt. I might be reading into that like crazy, but that's all.
No,
That's what I got.
that was pretty good. So let's tackle the Jesse part. So
Okay.
you had mentioned like, why would Jesse feel this way? He's making $1.5 million for 3 months. What's the point of being this? And I've mentioned this before, I still think it comes down to, yes, when Jesse's back against the wall, he definitely needs money. But when his back is not against the wall, he needs some kind of level of respect, which he's still not getting. You didn't see it when he was meeting with Gus. Gus just kept on talking about the maestro, his partner, and how the genius is not here. It's just you. The only time that he feels respect is when he's dealing with Badger and Skinny Pete, because they just look at him like he is their boss, right? Like he gets that respect from them. So that's why I would say. And for Walt, when he was driving away like that, it was like he feeling like indestructible. Or was he finding out that he isn't as of a macho man as he thought he was, because he almost died because of the Salamanca brothers? So I don't know. That was a pretty crazy part.
Yeah, that scene reminded me of when he came out of the meeting with Tuco after he blew up Tuco's office,
Hmm.
and he closes the door in his car and he lets out this primal scream, like he got away with something, or he's about to embark on, like, I did the dang thing, right? And when he meets with Gus, he's proud of himself, I think, for connecting all the dots. And he's like, I know what you're doing, Gus, and by the way, I respect it. But he gets Gus to agree to give them more money. Now he's dreaming not of a million and a half, not of 3 million, but of, I guess, half of 12 million, right? Would be the total thing that he would get. So, I mean, that's an insane amount of money. I mean, to be honest, like a million's a lot, but you can burn through that actually pretty quickly. So,
Mhm.
but I mean, 6 million at that point, you're making, that's some serious money. So I don't know what it was, but it was similar to that scene. I got to say, my favorite part of that scene when he's in the car and he runs off the road and almost kills himself. He kind of comes to a little bit, and when he's going to get back on the road, he puts his turning signal on.
Turns the blinker on.
There's no one. There's no one around, and he's not, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But like, it showed perfectly his old self of like following the rules.
Yeah.
Even when they don't make sense. He
Exactly.
puts his dang blinker on. Oh, that just cracked me up. So, okay, well, we've spent a lot of time on what Kafkaesque means, and we haven't even mentioned the times when when Jesse brings it up, and Jesse clearly doesn't have any clue what it means. And my friend and I were laughing about this because he said, "Well, I think most people mean it like this," and I said, "I think most people use it and don't know what it means." And Jesse showed what that was like when they're when he's talking to the guys, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to like pay taxes on this," and he's like, "Paying taxes, man, that's like Kafkaesque."
Yeah, that was great because it just made him. He wanted to sound smart. He's always trying to sound smarter than he is.
Right,
Do that when you
right.
say that amongst people like Badger and Skinny Pete.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, let's get into the episode proper. We're gonna have to kind of speed up here a little bit, otherwise it'll take us forever. But yeah, okay. So yeah, so Jesse's not happy, and he asks, or Walt asks him, he asked Walt, what's more important than money? And it's interesting, like the scene right after that is when Hank's in the hospital, showing that, well, I don't know, health's more important than money. Like, it's getting us to think Jesse is strictly seeing things in terms of money. But I think you're right that there's more going on than just greed. I think there's a desire for respect. But he's telling himself, no, look, I just want more money. I mean, what's more important than money? He's sort of justifying himself that way. But what else happens in this episode? What's to describe next? So Hank tells Gomi about the warning call that he gets, and Walt hears this, and it was a little hard for me to believe, to be perfectly honest with you, the way that Walt's able to put all of these dots together. But he determines, okay, somebody was coming for me, and they were sent instead to Hank, and then they also tipped Hank off, and they did that so that Hank would have a fighting chance against these guys, and maybe they would all shoot each other and they would all die, and who would benefit by that? Oh, well, Gus would. Anyway, so he does all that, and as we already described, he goes out and he meets with Gus, and he says, "I see your plan, and I respect the strategy." Sounded a lot like respect the science in a way. It was sort of like he's seeing there's, just in the same way that there's magic to chemistry, there's a magic to playing this criminal game, right? And Gus is good at it,
Right.
and he's so good that even Walt respects the strategy that he's deploying.
Yeah. What did he say? He goes, I would have done the same thing if it was me.
Yeah,
So,
right.
like, well, would you have thought of something like that?
Well, even if he had thought of it, would he have carried it out?
Right.
I don't think so. That's a good point. So Skylar, yeah. So we have to talk about sort of the arc of transition that Skylar plays that happens to Skylar in this episode. So the first thing that happens is when Gomi is telling Hank about the blue meth showing up all of a sudden, in the corner of the screen, you can see Skylar eyeing Walt. She's starting to think about, what's going on. And then later on, she asks Walt, "Are we safe?" And Walt lies through his teeth and tells her, "Oh, yeah, no, of course, But he doesn't know. He doesn't know. How could he possibly know if they're really safe? He's beginning to suspect that the cartel sent literal assassins to take him out. So, but we see Skylar starting to, maybe she doesn't believe him when he says, "Oh yeah, we're totally safe." But we see Skylar, my point is, starting to take control. She's starting to move the chess pieces on the board in such a way that she's going to be in control.
Yeah, well, I mean, she moved a pretty big one with the whole discussion with Marie.
Well, right, but what happens before that? Okay, so Ted comes knocking on the door. Pretty bold move, Ted. I mean, surely he knows that Walt's there. And last time he saw Walt, remember Walt threw the freaking tree, tried to throw the tree through his office wall. So I would think that he would be a little nervous of that, but it shows the degree to which he really wants a relationship with Skylar and thinks that there's no barrier to him being able to do that. And, we've seen Skylar kind of rebuff him a lot. And she says, "Well, he's a super nice guy. He's helping me out a lot." But he's like, "Okay, I'm ready to start a relationship and move forward with you." And she's giving him all these mixed signals. So I think we've seen her kind of waffling a little bit, not sure. On one hand, like remember when she's talking with her lawyer, I think it is, about Ted, and she's like, "Well, I like him," but it's pretty clear she's just using him in a way.
Of course.
So when Ted shows up, he sort of forces her to make, to make a decision. Are you going to move? Are you going to keep the door open with me, or are you going to close it? And she doesn't really give him an answer, but she does resolve to herself, I think, to go forward with Walt. And so towards the end of the meeting of the episode, when they're talking with Marie, and she says, "Yeah, no, so Walt had this gambling problem, da 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 da." I thought it was brilliant on her part because she gets to absolve Walt of all blame. Like, well, he had this problem, At the same time, she's completely punching him in the gut, saying that, "Well, you see, Marie, he was just too proud. Weren't you, Walt? Weren't you just too proud?" Yes, Skylar, I was just too proud, and I lost $14,000, and
And he just had to take it. He wasn't in a position to change the story at all. In fact, he was so interested in what she was going to say next. Like when she leaned in, he's like, "Yeah, what did I do? What did I do next?"
Right.
So yeah, it
was very believable that she was making it up on the spot. So yeah, well, okay. So at the beginning of the episode, though, she's wondering, "Are we safe? I'm not in control. I'm just waiting for something the hatchet to drop, and we're going to be potentially killed." And at the end of the episode, she's kind of in control, and she's telling Marie, "We're going to pay for this." But it seems like what she's doing is she's deciding Walt is good. Walt and I are good. The problems that we've had are related to this gambling problem, and that means that they're resolvable. And more importantly, we should remember, what did Hank convince Marie the problem was leading to their divorce? He was like, "Come on, we know exactly what this is. This is an affair. Clearly, Walt is having an affair." And he's like, "Do I have to spell it out for you, Marie?" Like, of course that's what happened. And so now Skylar said, "No, it wasn't an affair. It was a gambling problem." So that's not really it's a problem that seems to be that they can resolve and stay married. So
right. And she even said, like, he ended up just doing, like, what'd she say, illegal backroom games, not at a casino. So it was easier to kind of cover up.
Right. So he doesn't have to pay taxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't have to say it's Kafkaesque, man. We don't have to say more, I don't think, about Skylar. That's sort of the arc of her character in this story, in this episode. Maybe kind of return to Jesse a little bit. So Jesse's still going to these like recovery meetings. And I've been asking for a while, why is he still going? Is he going because he likes the meetings? Doesn't seem like it. He seems to hate them. He's there and the guy calls on him and he has to talk really reluctantly and he's lying. He's like, yeah, I got this sucky job at the laundromat. Da, da, da. Okay, so it doesn't look like he's going because he likes the meetings. Is he going there because he really wants to recover? Oh, okay, maybe. But then he wants to start selling meth, and he invites his friends to come to the meetings to start selling meth to the poor people who are there trying to recover from some kind of narcotics, right? So he doesn't seem to be all about like recovery.
Right. Well, it's a whole new level for Jesse for him to stoop to that level to sell to people that are in recovery. Is that something to do with Jane? Like, why would he go to that level? It's a whole different level of bad that he's kind of breaking into. Because I don't think that the old Jesse would have done something like that. But it's like he doesn't care at this point. He's almost looking for a new hobby.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Jane, right? Because he hasn't brought up Jane in a long time. He seems to be over her or accepted her death and all that. But you're right. You'd think that maybe he would be going to those meetings because they would remind him of her in some way. But then selling meth to the people that are there, that seems really twisted. Why would he want to do that to something that reminded him of something pure like Jane? So I don't know. It's not really clear, really odd. But over the course of the episode, he goes to the meetings. He tells this story about the box that he made. And that was kind of an interesting insight into his psyche a little bit, where he says, yeah, I'm just trying to get out of class early, so I made this really horrible box. And then the guy asked me if it was the best I could do, and I had this awakening moment and said, no, you're right, it's not the best I can do. And then he did the best, made the best box that he could, and he was super proud of it. And I'm wondering, okay, he's telling us something about his psyche here. Does that help us understand any of the other sort of motives that he has in the rest of the story? There's when the teacher said, is that the best you can do? It made him strive, right? He had ambition stoked in him for excellence. And then he says he sold it for an ounce of weed, right? And he was very distraught over that. And it was sort of I'm capable of striving for excellence, and I'm capable of throwing it all away.
Yeah, I thought it was strange because in that story, he showed that he is capable of applying himself when he really wants to. And maybe it was how that teacher, and he even said, like, the teacher said it not in a way that he said, your box sucks, but could you do better? And I think that's how he was able to respond in a more positive way. But you see in Walt's chemistry class, he did not have that same experience.
I think we should remember the story of the box and the teacher and later on see if Jesse's character if there's a moment where he aspires for that same kind of excellence. And the struggle for him is he going to sell it for the ounce of weed, or is he going to treasure it, So he gets the gang back together, and Badger never fails. He always delivers. Badger is the bomb. So Jesse has this line, what's the point of being an outlaw if you have responsibilities? and Badger responds, well, Darth Vader had responsibilities. He was responsible for the Death Star.
Two of them.
It was so good. Two of them. Yeah, church. So okay, so that's a silly line, but there's something profound underneath it, though. Jesse is bringing up the point that even outlaws have to honor a sense of obligation. even to themselves or among themselves, if they want to accomplish things, right? Like Jesse can't betray Badger and Skinny Pete if they want to be able to do things together that they have to do, through cooperation. So I think when Saul tries to get him to buy the salon so he can launder his money, he's kind of helping him understand. He's trying to get him to understand you need to be responsible. You can't just be, if you got to be smart, which means you're going to have to please certain people. You can't just be serving yourself.
What does he say? He said, like, well, if you want to stay a criminal, then this is what you got to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Very Machiavellian. If you want to stay in power, you're going to have to do these kinds of things, including, pay me and pay other people to do things for you to help you look respectable, to avoid the IRS and all of that. So my point is, Jesse has this immature view of what an outlaw is, as someone who just gets to do anything they want all the time. And if everybody's pointing out, if you do that, you're not going to be a criminal for very long. You're going to be in prison. So if you want to be a good criminal, then you need to be smart. And right now, he doesn't seem to be smart.
No, and it's weird because Saul even explained it to him. He broke it down in simple terms. And Jesse just did not want to accept that was the only solution. He's not able to see the big picture at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm still left wondering, why does he want to steal the meth? I mean, I'm trying to think how much more money he could make off of. I mean, he's not going to steal that much. It can't be too much, right? Otherwise, people will start to notice. So
again, he's not looking long term. He's not looking how is this going to hurt me down the road?
Right. So here's the theory, right? Maybe part of the reason he's doing it, maybe it's not, as we've said before, not just about money, but about a desire to want to feel like he can do whatever he wants. Right? He hates working for the man. He hates working for Gus. If Gus makes all the profit, he wants to be able to exert his own will in a way, even if it's not really to his benefit. It would really be more to his benefit to keep on good terms with Gus, because we know what Mike can do whenever Gus wants, just to take Jesse out, right? So I think that's what's going on here. Jesse seems to be searching for an outlet for will, and he wants to exert his will and be respected at the same time.
Yep.
So those are the things that I think kind of underneath what's going on with.
Did we mention during Skylar's ramble about the gambling when Marie at the end was saying, like, well, how much did you make? And Skylar kind of leaves that up to him. Did you notice that this was the first time that Walt was able to almost brag his accomplishments? He could have said, I've made about $100,000, whoop-de-doo. But he said, it's in the 7 figures. Right? Like it was the first time he was actually able to get some kind of acknowledgement.
Second time. Remember when he shows Holly the money in the insulation?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Daddy did that. You see that? But
that's right.
It's reminiscent of that second time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So on one hand, Walt is able to brag about, look at this great thing that I did. And on the other hand, we've got Skylar kind of in control of everything. She's in complete control of the narrative, and Walt is her little plaything in that narrative. And she's doing her own strategizing, right? I don't know. Do you think Walt respects the strategy, the Skylar strategy?
I think so, because even at the end, Skylar says, I learned from the best. So you got to hope that he respects it, because it's out of his own playbook.
Right. Yeah, good point. All right. Well, we're left in a very interesting place where we're not really sure where Skylar is going to move the chess pieces next, but she's definitely in control of the game.
Yep. This next episode is I'm excited for you to watch.
Okay.
I'm
I'm excited to remember it.
Yeah, it's a good one. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. You could find these episodes on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. And you could also follow and contact us on Twitter and Patreon at Breaking Into BB. We will see you next time as we break into another episode of Breaking Bad.